I feel like it answered a lot of our questions too.
Word. What's good, everyone out there in quarantine land, or quarantina, as everyone is calling it? I thought you were going to say something.
I thought you were going to introduce me like you did before.
Oh, okay.
I'm a guest, so I don't want to, I didn't know if you wanted to have your intro.
Okay, so so that's my intro, and we have again my girl Lucy. What up?
What up, though?
Trying to know. So we're back. We're back for another episode of, what is it called again? Little Fires
Everywhere. Episode 6.
Episode 6. Okay, yes. So episode 6, we find out, it's interesting because as I was ruminating on our last show about episode 5, mad shit we predicted, bro. Like, everything came out in episode 6. Like, all of our inquisitions were like answered.
But I was really leaning towards her being raped or attacked. So the whole surrogacy thing,
Well, yeah.
For a loop. They were making him seem rough and tough and dangerous.
Yeah.
And it was just sweet little Jesse Williams. Is that his name?
Did you call him sweet?
Well, he looked all sweet and innocent once he started speaking with her, and then he was sitting next to his wife.
He was like,
he was not a demon like he looked in her vision.
Word, he was looking at her mad hard, like he was a creep.
And honestly, she doesn't look like his wife to me. I didn't see it.
First of all, she looks literally 18, like how old she is.
Right?
She was super young. That's actually one thing I didn't like about the casting, even though I don't know if they could have found somebody better than her because she captured Kerry Washington's mannerisms to like a T. But to me, she looked really young. And that scene, that like lesbian scene, even that like whole dynamic to me was a bit off-putting because of the age difference, like visibly.
Yeah, that was really, I don't know if you remember the case in the 90s, Mary Kay Letourneau, when she was dating her 17-year-old student, had a bunch of babies with him, ended up marrying him. Do you remember this?
They're white, right?
I believe she is, and I believe he is Native American or Mexican.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah. It was so weird. So weird. And just downright wrong.
It is what it is, some people feel like that age difference, as long as it's legal, is nothing but a number.
Yeah, but it's like, it's how you look though. You can't be looking like so young. Like, it just looks weird. And like, even that whole like Black China thing when she was dating that little rapper YN something that, I don't know.
How old is Mia supposed to be in this? Is she supposed to be 18?
Yeah, because she goes off to college.
Hey, I know people who go to college at 16 and 17. Just saying.
No.
But so, the 80s were a different type. It was a different time.
I don't know. But it's interesting because episode 6, we see both Reese's and Carrie's, or Mia and what's her name? Elaine?
Elena, yeah.
Is it Elaine or Elena?
Elena.
So we see both of their origin stories almost. So we see, let's talk about Mia's, because obviously that was like really captivating.
Absolutely.
So the scene starts off with her parents and her brother at the dinner table. And it just reminded, her parents are like Jamaicans, which
are they really? I thought they were supposed to be fake Africans, because I've been trying to figure out what their nationality was supposed to be.
No, they're Jamaican, because in one of the episodes, Carrie, I keep on saying their real names, but Mia's character says to the Chinese woman that is her colleague.
She did.
Oh, there's an old Jamaican saying. So yeah. And
You're
so
right. That's horrible. They did a bad job with
honestly,
that.
I just feel like some, like one or two words they said correctly, but I just feel like you can hire Jamaican actors. Like, it's okay.
Exactly. And they
They
don't look like
exist.
Sean Paul.
They exist. They're out there looking for work.
Now, who were these people? Because they had horribly fake African accents, it sounded like to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I recognize the father. I don't remember who the mother is in the acting world, but the father's been in. I think he was in A Different World.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so we start off with her, little family unit, and Jamaican or Caribbean parents are, I would say the stereotype is that they're strict.
They did
And
a
so
really bad job with connecting the dots with that. I think that's really where they dropped the ball, to be honest with you.
with what, like showing the strictness of the household?
Other than you pointing out a few episodes prior when she had the Jamaican saying, I don't feel like there's anything that is a part of Mia's character identity, even her interaction with her parents or her brother, that indicates her cultural identity as like coming from a Jamaican household, or even how that ties into what she's doing now or the decisions she's making. I feel like it was just kind of dropped in. I
Mm.
think they did a very bad job of weaving it into the story.
That's interesting that you say that, because I feel like her decision making in terms of um, deciding to honor her brother by um, like not giving the baby to the Ryans was her way of rebelling against her parents.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if that sort of um, not makes up for it, but sort of leans into the fact that they were really strict. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I thought it was very interesting because there was a part where her brother actually, when she was speaking with her brother, and he was saying something along the lines of, can't find the quote, but I'm just gonna go the top of my head. Okay, I found it. He said, you say you want to create something that will change the world. What if it's her, referring to the baby?
Yeah,
So I kind of got the idea that that's, you're very correct in saying that's why she kept the baby, to honor her brother. But I think that moment alone, I think that was kind of where she started forming that decision.
yeah. And
Because he
and
said that it
honestly, she
drove
was
her.
so young to even be presented with this like difficult decision. Like, even though it seemed rushed, like, I just need this money. Like, you're literally carrying a baby within your stomach who is biologically half you. And so that was also interesting, because at first I didn't really know, because I had like a vague idea of like surrogacy. But so then we saw like what do you call that little like base thingy, like turkey
Turkey
baster?
baster, you saw that too?
Yeah, so that was, I'm presuming, just his, she was inseminated.
Now, who do you think did that? What do you think that process was like? Because I remember the
Yeah.
turkey baster being in the art room with her and Pauline,
N- who's Pauline again?
her girlfriend, when
No,
they were making the
no.
photos.
The turkey base, I don't know if it was, but I know that the wife of Jesse Williams, the Ryans, the
Mm-hmm.
woman,
Yeah.
she inseminated Mia
Did she? How do you know that?
with the turkey baster. There was a scene. Because there was
Okay.
this, do you remember the scene where she was like, "Oh, I never even put in a tampon before"?
I thought she was talking to her girlfriend.
No, no, that was look, we don't all look the same. No, I'm joking.
Damn. I thought she was
Yeah.
talking to her girlfriend.
No, that was that was his wife.
Because I feel like the images of the photos were of her inserting the turkey baster. That's what it looked like when they were developing the photos. and she asked her what it looks like, and she said she thinks it looks like a monster. There were her legs on the side, and it looked like she was sticking something inside of her. So I don't know how they got the photos, but that was kind of what it was insinuating when they were showing that.
Yeah. I don't think so, but you might be right. But so she gets inseminated or whatever, and then she finds out really bad news. She finds out her brother was killed in a car accident.
His new car at that.
After he came to visit, and he was kind of looking at her up and down, like, what are you doing at this late old lady's house? Like, oh, you're a lesbian and you're pregnant? Like, he was just so, like, confused by her lifestyle.
But he knew what was up, even when she didn't.
Yeah, which I found was really fascinating, that she gives me, like, she's very confused. Like, how did you not see? And it's very telling of that age too, when you're kind of just making actions and not really understanding what's going on. Like, you're not processing, you're just doing.
I
And so,
agree.
yeah, so she quickly moved in with her professor. I feel like her professor kind of manipulated her, to be honest.
100%. I
Yeah.
agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what if you could choose, what zodiac sign do you think Mia is supposed to be in the show?
Shit.
And what zodiac sign do you feel like Elena is supposed to be?
Oh, this is a good one. Okay. Okay.
Pull out your
So
co-host or co-star.
hold up. So okay. So I can do Reese a little bit more. So I mean Elena. So Elena, I think, is very erratic but very structured. She's also very insecure. So I would say Elena, she you know what? I want to say something kind of boring, like Libra. Um she gives me Libra, but she also gives me, like, I don't know why, but she gives me like Scorpio.
Do you want to hear what I think?
What?
She gives me either Capricorn or Virgo vibes.
Virgo.
She's
Virgo.
very, like,
She's a
she's
Virgo.
playing everything to a T. I would definitely say Virgo
I
because,
missed it. Yeah, I missed the mark.
yeah,
Totally.
I think
She's a
she's
Virgo.
supposed to be a Virgo.
She's a Virgo. Like, that's it. She's a
But
Virgo.
I can relate to some of her, like wanting order and control because of her mother being an alcoholic, and feeling like she's losing control of her life, and really taking drastic measures to feel like she's gaining it back.
Yeah.
I kind of get that from a perspective. So I was like, maybe she could possibly be a Capricorn, but she's too emotional to be a Capricorn. That's
Yeah.
what I think of Virgo.
I think Mia is, like, she gives me Capricorn, Taurus. She gives me definitely like an earth sign.
She gives me Aquarius.
Or I was about to say air.
Because they're like the adventure, the water, that she goes whatever direction. She's like, wherever the wind is blowing me, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have a baby, I'm gonna have a baby. I'm gonna live here, I'm gonna live here. Like, she doesn't care. She has no order. But she does everything by her intuition and her heart. So she's very, like, in tune with her emotions. So I do get that earthy vibe from her.
Um Yeah, she gives me like, because later on in her life, as we've seen Pearl as like a preteen or a teenager, she gives me Taurus, Capricorn. But her younger years, yeah, she definitely gives me like Aquarius, maybe even Pisces.
I
But
feel like her character it's not like, I feel like it's more so she's possessive, as we said before. And I was thinking, I feel like her name is like allegorical. I feel like a lot of their names are allegorical, because Mia, it means like my or mine in Spanish or Italian. And you know how like possessive and selfish she is of her things. Like, remember in
Yeah.
the last episode when she got mad at Izzy for going through her private things? Like, that's just how she
Yeah.
is.
Like,
She's
don't touch my
possessive of
stuff.
Mia. She's like, I'm sorry, Pearl. She's like, she's trying to steal my daughter. Like, she's
Yeah.
very, that's just a part of her character.
Yeah, but you know, she feels that way because she literally stole the man's baby.
But I was thinking about Pearl's name, and I was thinking, okay, I didn't get it, but then I realized, have you ever read The Scarlet Letter by
No,
Nathaniel Hawthorne?
no.
That's what Pearl's name is. Pearl has an allegorical name too. Her name is supposed to be symbolic to Pearl, who was Hester Prynne's baby. The Scarlet Letter is about a young woman who moves into a new town. And it was like during the early, I want to say like the Quaker Puritan times, really old times. And she's a single mother. And she has her daughter. She committed adultery with a very prominent guy in the community. So she has to wear a crimson scarlet A because she is the only person who's without a husband, and they find out that her baby is an illegitimate child. Her baby was Pearl.
Mm.
Very interesting, because it all rings true to Pearl and Mia's life right now. They're in this new town where, if you notice, everyone comes from a two-parent household. From what we see so far, like, again, we haven't seen Brian's parents, Lexi's boyfriend, but we have seen everyone else's parents. Everyone comes from a two-parent household, other than Pearl and Mia, and they're like the Hester and Pearl.
Lexi's boyfriend comes from a two-parent household, I'm presuming. Because
I mean, I'm assuming. I don't know. We haven't seen both his parents. We haven't even heard him talk about his mom and his dad.
we did. There was a scene in episode 5. Remember that scene when Lexi told him about the pregnancy? And he
I
said,
remember
oh,
him
my
saying,
parents.
yeah, I remember him saying his mom will think he's a cliche or something like that.
Oh, okay. I
I
thought
remember him
that his
saying, my
parents.
parents, I don't remember like him ever talking about his father. And I think it's weird because we've seen them go over um, Elena's house, but we've never seen them go over his house, which is why I'm curious, because he's really the only other person other than Pearl who we really get to see.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I guess I'm really I started looking at Mia differently towards the end, especially when um the music and the whole like theatrics of it sort of like zoomed in on Pearl's face, and so it made Mia look like this captor. And I was like, wow.
I didn't even
This
think
is
about that.
It was so intense. You know what I'm saying? I was like, damn, this is crazy, because I was rooting for Mia.
Yeah.
I was like on Mia's side.
Shout out to the Meredith Brooks medley they had playing in the background. Oh, that was kind of nice.
And so like I didn't know how to feel about her. But as I thought about the episode, I feel like I'm more so back on her side, because I feel like, Pearl is half her DNA. So she feels justified in just taking the baby. She writes a letter to the Ryans saying that she has a miscarriage,
So sweet.
and just, goes from town to town, changes her name to Warren in honor of her brother. The fact that she took her parents not letting her go to the funeral this far is astounding. Like, if
This is what makes me feel like she's an Aquarius. Like, she did a lot of Aquarius-ish behavior. Like, even in the end, when she said, when she was on the phone with the woman and she found out that Pauline, her girlfriend, died, she said, I don't know where we'll end up, but I'll let you know when I get there. Like, what? So you don't know where you're going. You have no plan. You just going with it. That's Aquarius moves.
Yeah. Yeah, like it was just imagine if she would have went to the funeral. Like imagine if that would have changed the trajectory of her life.
I thought she was going to. I thought she was just gonna pop up. Like,
Yeah. And it really shows you how much of an impact our parents and their words and their even like small actions can like impact our decision making way into our lives.
so you don't feel like her parents had a point, like at all? I get that's their
Absolutely
daughter.
not. No, hell no. Hell no.
I
That's
feel like
the
it's
type of old
difficult.
school mentality that needs to be thrown away.
Yeah, I get it because they're old school, but I also got that they're religious. The mother is a deaconess. So they come from a church praising household. She shows up not only pregnant without a man, unmarried, young.
Hmm.
I feel like it shames parents. Like I've seen this thing happen in real life where people get pregnant and they're in close relation to people in the church, and it's a problem.
But then look what that caused Mia to do. Not even saying that it was the wrong move, because we've yet to see if it was the wrong move.
Yeah.
But it caused her a lot of problems. Just like with what was I gonna say? I forgot what I was gonna say, but the way like some religions are just so restrictive, you end up rebelling because of it.
I feel like if Pauline were fine with her having a child, they would live their little handy dandy lives in her house. They would not, she wouldn't have ran away. I feel like she had
Yeah,
no choice.
she had absolutely no choice. And that's actually really, I'm looking at her through the lens of like this, like, she's this naive person, but that's a very mature decision, in my opinion. Because it's like, well, I mean, clearly she has a lot of knowledge base because she's like lived with them, so she knows how they are. But she's come to this like crossroad and she has to make a decision. And she knows that it's just not going to work under her parents' roof. And so she takes the hard route and sort of travels from place to place like a wanderer with her baby, all in honor. I don't know. I guess she has this big vision for herself and for the baby.
I have a question for you. Why do you feel like she never gave them their money back? They wouldn't be looking for her if she didn't do so, if she didn't do it. I know she doesn't have the money, but I feel like if she would have just came clean and said okay, or even if she would have stuck with the story and said yeah, I had a miscarriage, but she did write in a letter she'll pay them back. Why
Yeah.
would she write that and then just dip? Like, I don't understand. You're setting yourself up.
You know what? I don't know because I could have sworn she said yeah, like I don't know, maybe she did send the money back. I don't
So why
know.
would they be looking for her if she did? Just because she has a
But
child?
yes, of course, that we had an agreement. That's my baby. You're supposed to give the baby up, which
Right.
is actually interesting because that was in the 80s and surrogacy was like this sort of kind of new thing. There weren't like a lot of laws surrounding it. And so I
Agreed.
think it was like default, like it was prohibited. Um I'm sorry, it was allowed by default. So there were no laws really prohibiting it.
Agreed, because Roe versus Wade was in 1973. That was a few years prior. And that was where I think it was where the woman, she wanted to have the choice to be able to either keep her baby or abort her baby. And I feel like that was an ongoing theme. That was like a real serious theme in this episode. How do you feel about Elena and her decision and her pregnancy and her life?
My God. I related to her so much when she that remember that scene that was so powerful, like when she started breaking all the dishes.
Yeah.
Like just three kids crying, one start crying, and then it's like the other start crying 2 seconds later. And it's interesting too because she never even wanted Lexi, the other, what's her name?
Isabel.
Izzy. She never wanted Izzy. Like, Izzy was a complete inconvenience to her. And I found it also interesting that her mom, when she tried to open up to her mom about this and how she didn't want the pregnancy because of work and those aspirations, her mom was incredibly conniving and just saying, well, you know, you can do this. Like, she was kind of like silently, like, you know, not forcing her, but telling her like, well, you don't really have a choice, you know, you have to do
Exactly.
this. And it's sort of taking away her own agency. And so we see this as a theme a lot with Elena, in which she's such a control freak, but it's almost as if she doesn't even have control over her own life.
I agree. And I love that we were finally introduced to her mother, because now we get to see why she is the monster she has become. Not only is her mother an alcoholic after 3 p.m., but her mother, if you notice, does not have a job, but somehow she's extremely wealthy. I kind of got the impression that her mother was wealthy because her father has money and comes from money, or is a hard worker, which is why she told her, why when she found out she was pregnant and she even discussed terminating it because she valued her job, her mother said to her, the obsession that her generation has with work, it's okay to just be a woman and let the men be men. So that's kind of where she's coming from. Her mother feels like a man's role is the breadwinner, while the woman's role is to stay in and have babies. Because when she tried to even discuss the option about abortion, her mother said, "You're acting as if it's a choice." And then she said, she was insinuating that abortion is, quote unquote, not for people like us. What the F does that mean?
You know what I mean?
No, I don't. Because I'm like, is it because they're religious? Is it because they sometimes somehow gain their wealth from babies? Because I was thinking, since her mother's wealthy, maybe they have some type of clause in their prenup where they get a bunch of money per child. Is that why her mother is placing such a heavy emphasis on her having a baby? Or is it just because they might be religious and come from these pristine Christian backgrounds, and it's just not a part of their beliefs? Who are people
Well,
like them?
earlier in the episode, um, when we see their best friends and they're all eating Chinese at the dinner table,
Mm-hmm.
they I guess their best friends, like the male, he says something about, oh, you guys should move. They're just like giving tons of loans to anybody white. And then Elena was like, no, my mother worked on that board or committee, and they're not giving loans to us. They're
I
giving, it's not
thought
really
I
for
heard that.
us. So
I
I feel
thought
like
I
that,
heard that.
yeah, so that tied into the mother's statement. So what I thought of when her mother said, um, it's you're we're different, was that meaning that we have economic stability, and um, people who have economic stability tend to be white people. So it was sort of um, this contrast between Mia and Alina.
I love that you saw it like that, because I didn't even realize that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, but so let's talk about, I mean, Elena's story, we should talk about it more because it's very interesting too. And I also want to get back to Mia's. I feel like we have to dive into that some more too. But so with Elena's story, in terms of her, so she's so frustrated with being a mother for the fourth time. She ends up leaving the house as soon as her husband comes home, goes out to buy a pacifier, and does not return until the next day.
Now, what did did you think about that weird scene where she was like fading in and out of consciousness at the store in the pacifier section? Because mind you, she just passed that section when she was with her babies and they were all crying in the store. She was directly in front of the pacifiers. So she was
Yeah.
literally back in that scene. What did you think about that?
I honestly thought she was gonna faint or something. Like I thought she was so exhausted she was gonna faint.
Drinking Molly water.
Yeah, like I thought she was done for it.
You know what I realized about that scene?
What?
I honestly watched the episode a couple of times and I didn't get it the first time. But the second time I realized that's the same exact song they were playing when she was dancing in Paris with Jamie.
Oh yes, 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 yes.
And I was like, okay, I get it. I get it. I think that scene, like that moment, kind of well, they started zooming in after they zoomed in on her and she had her eyes closed and was in a daze, just dancing, looked like she was swaying. She looked like a little drunk. But then they zoomed in on the pacifiers and I was like, okay, I don't get it. But I realized that might have been like some type of phallic symbol or some type of phallic mimicry, because then now she's about to have an affair with Jamie. So I
Mm,
thought it was like interesting because I didn't get it at first, but I realized it was a foreshadowing.
maybe. I mean, that's a little weird, but maybe.
Because what
Um,
stopped her from actually going through with it with Jamie is that she's a mother. She was breastfeeding. Something was
yeah.
going on with her breasts.
Yeah, that scene was so powerful to me. 'Cause like she was literally about to get it on. And then like she literally unfolds in the bathroom. Like she is a mess. She is out of control. And it's so jarring to see someone who seemingly has it together literally just break apart. And
Exactly.
and it's also interesting to see how Mia pulls it the fuck together.
You think so?
Yes. While Reese is rather unraveling, Mia has made a decision and she's just gonna go for it like a straight shooter.
You know, I agree. And I feel like that's the difference between Mia and Elena. Mia kind of lets things flow while Elena, that situation made her feel like a failure.
Yeah,
I love that imagery when she was in the store because she had on this beautiful, elegant jacket. Like she looked a little roughed up, but it looked like, from a certain angle, she looked beautiful. She still looked young. It looked like,
yeah, yeah,
she still had her youth, but as the scenes continue on, I felt
yeah,
like she began to look older and more tired.
yeah, yeah. It's hard keeping up with the Joneses, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's
A
why I
lot.
really feel like that pacifier had some type of meaning because, she was young and cute in the
Yeah,
store from a side angle, but then when you show her, she looked a freaking
yeah.
mess.
It's
She
also,
looked
it could have been symbolic for her just like not wanting to go through this again. This is her fourth child, her fourth pacifier, so to speak. And it's kind of like this is not what she wanted. And
exactly.
so she's looking at something that she didn't want while that song, that disco sort of song plays while reminding her of her time with Jamie.
Now, was it me or does that song sound kind of scary? To me, that song sounds scary.
I don't remember it.
To me, it sounds like a horror movie. It's not a scary song, but it's just the way it keeps weaving in and out. It has this scary undertone to me.
So what did you think of so when they were in the hotel, her and Jamie, and she's like rushing to leave and he's a little frustrated with her and he's like, "Why are you doing this? Just tell me what's wrong. I love you." And then she's like, "Ah, you're taking advantage of me and I gotta go." Like, what did you think of her saying you're taking advantage of me?
I feel like she said that as a way to get away. I feel like it was like a scapegoat. And again, I feel like it was a scapegoat because at one point she thought she was young and youthful and beautiful, And then when she realized she's this lactating mom who
Mm.
looks a freaking mess, wrinkles, she can't keep up anymore.
Like,
She
what am I
couldn't see
doing?
her beauty anymore, so she couldn't see how he was gonna see it. She realized she's
No.
actually someone's property. Her mother and her mother has this idea that that's what women are supposed to be. They're supposed to be the man's housewife, take care of the children. So her saying, you're taking advantage is like, I'm someone else's property and you're kind of, you're barking on his territory. Because correct me if I'm wrong, just the night before, when they had the babysitter, her husband gave her a hug and said something like, I had a great time last night. So they had an active sex life.
Mm. This is funny because it reminds me of, you remember when her husband, so she returned home that morning, the next morning, and her husband saw Jamie's phone number on the back of the receipt.
Yep.
And so fast or like rewind to we know that her and her husband only have sex on like what, Wednesdays and Saturdays?
Yeah, I believe so.
And so that's gotta fuck with his mind. Like the fact that he accepts this sort of like rigid schedule and this like non-existent like romanticism, like, and the fact that like I'm pretty sure he knows that she has this sort of fantasy of, being with her ex.
I wonder if he does know or if that was kind of his introduction. I wonder what he's going to do with that number. I
Yeah.
feel like whatever he does next,
Yeah. Something because they see each other again. Because remember when they met in New York, the last episode,
Mhm.
Homeboy was pissed at her for some shit that went down.
I remember.
Yep. So she definitely like she seems to have a theme which is running to him. When shit gets out of control, when she can't handle shit, she runs to him. She runs away.
I feel like he's the one who got away to her because he had,
Absolutely.
maybe they had this perfect life planned out, and she had always envisioned him as being the perfect mate. And then when they had their differences, it didn't work out. So she went another direction. So I think in the back of her mind, she's always thinking, "What if? Would my life have been more perfect?" Especially knowing he works for the New York Times, she about to give that nanny up.
Mm.
What does her husband do? What does Bill do?
He's a lawyer.
See, he comes from money too. So it's like, I feel like there's a theme here because I know that her husband Bill didn't want to take her parents home.
Yeah.
Why do you feel like he didn't want to take the home? Because I felt like they were making, I guess they were on the come up, making
Yeah.
decent money. I kind of felt like it was just, a man's pride. Like we can't live in someone else's house. What do you think?
Well, wasn't that her mom's house too?
Yeah, but it's like, he's working hard. He wants to be able to have a house of his own for his family, even though they were living in like a little shack. I remember the mom saying, just making little negative comments about the space that they lived in. I feel like it's kind of strange for a man to kind of accept another man's handouts. So I feel like he had his little macho pride. Well, what? Because for me, I would want a free house. Mia got a free house. She's not complaining.
Well, the thing is, that's funny that you mentioned that because we don't see him really get angry. We don't see him get outside of himself. He just
Mhm.
literally seems so perfect.
Right?
He seems so humble, caring, loving, everything that you could want in a partner, he exhibits.
Yeah. Again, I think he is like one of the best depictions of a father, a parent that we actually have on the show, especially a father.
It's frustrating to see because Elena can't see past it must be upsetting for him to know that he's like second best, right? Like look at all the rules that she like gives him and like when she left to New York, she just left like the same like night that she got fed up with the baby and just went to the store. And each time she comes home, like he's so forgiving.
He sure is. What a great man.
Gosh, you know?
Now, I think if the shoe was on the other foot, I don't think that Jamie would be as forgiving. I don't to me, he has a little temper. He seems like he sees right through her and he doesn't like the BS. So I
Yeah.
feel like Jamie wouldn't take it. But I feel like her husband might really love her and be willing to work
Yeah.
with her. And
She
that's
can
what marriage is
control
all
him.
about.
She can control him.
Well, yeah, it's not about controlling, but yeah, she can. But he's compromising. That's an admirable quality. I feel like he's an admirable guy from what we've seen so far, unless he
Yeah.
messes up a little later.
And he like I feel like he genuinely cares for her. Because even like with Mia starting to work there, he's just like, well, did you check her references? Did you like, you know what I'm saying? Like he has her best interest and his family's best interest at heart.
Exactly. I was like, yes, tell her, remind her to check those references.
Yeah, so it's sort of sad to see that he's sort of second best in this, but yeah, just that scene where she was unraveling in the bathroom really resonated with me because it it just shows you how messy like motherhood really is and just like womanhood could be.
Yeah. I've grown to really like Elena because I understand her a little more. I
Yeah,
don't see this depiction that she portrays of herself to the world. We're starting to see what she's made of, how
yeah,
she feels, how she
yeah,
became this way. And
yeah,
to me, it's starting to make her a little more likable and admirable in a sense.
yeah. Yeah, and so it's funny too because of the dichotomy. Now we're looking at Mia sideways.
I've been looking at Mia sideways. I mean,
Yeah,
she's not perfect, but because there's some little hidden gems in there that I absolutely love about Mia. But I always got the idea that she's a little selfish, even though she does her best. Like, that's just how she is.
mm. The fact that she's on the run and tells Pearl like, "Oh no, yeah, like Pearl's totally convinced that her mom is just this artist that moves around from town to town because like she has to do this for her art." Not knowing she's doing this so she doesn't get caught up in any legal stuff and Pearl doesn't get taken away from her, which is literally her life's goal, Pearl not getting taken away from her. And so she sees Elena as this threat to that. And she sees and she keeps on having these flashbacks of this man, um, you know, sort of re-entering her life and possibly taking Pearl. And so it's that's got to be so heavy.
Do you remember when her calling was school? Like when she was begging to not be taken out of school because
Yeah.
that's where she needed to be? She hop, skip, and jumped out of school so fast when she realized she was going to take that
Yeah.
baby. I think it was just adrenaline. Once she made that decision, she was willing to take her baby by any means.
Yeah.
Completely changed.
Which is to me a little weird, to be honest, because I don't know why, because your brother died, you feel like this is the way to honor him. Maybe she felt like this was her purpose, this was it. Maybe she connected to her pregnancy, maybe like sort of that life and death dichotomy, like, you know, made her shift her plans.
To me, it still goes back to her being selfish because she was in this, love thing, whatever they wanted to call it, with another woman. She dipped and dodged her parents, her brother. Remember when her brother said, make sure the baby hears some Marvin Gaye because if she's not going to be able to have an uncle like me, at least she could have good taste in music. So I think that's kind of also what triggered her and made her feel guilty that she wasn't trying to keep the baby before, and now she has to because her her brother's last last request
Yeah,
that he couldn't be the uncle because she was doing what
yeah,
she had to do.
yeah. She felt like keeping Pearl was sort of keeping her brother.
Yeah.
So this is how she's mourning him and celebrating him, which is
Maybe.
really sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad that, because I think back to that moment where she could have went to the funeral and she could have sort of said her goodbyes in a monumental way, right? Because that's what funerals are for. And because that opportunity was robbed from her, this is what she felt like she had to do. And Pearl was so young. Mia was so young.
And she took his car. Now, did she even have a license? Does
I
she have a license? How'd she get a license? She was living in New York. These are questions with no answers.
But
She
yeah,
just
like
took his car and dipped. Like she had no regrets. She didn't look back.
none. She was out.
I didn't even know she knew how to drive because we saw her taking the subway that whole time.
She figured it out. She was like, well. And then so at the end of episode 5, Elena tracks down her parents and finds out that the baby isn't hers, which was misleading because the baby is hers, technically.
Kind of like BB's situation. It's BB's baby, but it isn't. You know,
Yeah,
same thing
right.
with Mia, and that's probably why she
It is, but
sympathized
it
so
ain't.
much.
Yeah. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, I can't imagine having this agreement with someone, having this monumental agreement with someone about to bring a baby into this world, and the person just decides to bounce.
I kind of felt like it was repetitive in a sense in this episode because I felt like there was another theme of like perception versus reality that they just really kept dabbling with. Every single time she spoke about the baby, it was, oh, it's not supposed to be hers. So, and it ended up being hers. How ironic. She ended up going away. Even when there was a scene with her and Pauline said to her, everyone in my life leaves. And she said, I'm not leaving. She dipped. So I feel like, it's interesting
Yeah.
because uh perception is one thing, how you perceive someone or how you perceive yourself to be, but in
Mhm.
reality, Mia's just kind of been doing for self.
I don't find anything wrong with that. Because she grew up in this really restrictive household, I can only imagine the things that she just wasn't able to do. She wasn't able to express herself, be herself, which is why her and Izzy are able to connect. And why she gives Izzy these looks when she's not being her authentic self.
You're right. And I feel like it goes back to what you said earlier about her kind of, just being there. She wasn't really present prior. She was being taken advantage of. The
Yeah.
woman was making all the moves, molding
Yeah.
her into what she wanted her to be. So I
Correct.
think it's ironic that now we see her as selfish because before until she had that baby, she was nothing. Like people were molding her and shaping her.
Right. Right. And so for her to leave to go to New York, this was her opportunity to be herself. It was a shot at, her life and her becoming. And even like when she received the letter saying that she had to pay X amount of money for tuition, and how much that freaked her out, and how sad it was that she didn't have anywhere to go to but sort of renting out her body for this opportunity to be herself.
Yeah.
And which is also interesting too, because as I was like looking more into surrogacy, so there was this, let me see, I think I wrote it down. So there was this, okay, so I think I don't remember what year, but I think it was like in 1983. There was this couple who, was it 1983? I don't know. So there was this couple in New York who paid this woman to be their surrogate. And so they did it just like Mia, through artificial insemination. And so the baby gave, after she gave birth, she gave the baby to the man and the woman, the couple. And
Mhm.
then like a week later, she shows up at their door, like crying hysterically or just like wanting the baby back.
Like
And
BB.
so the couple, of course, was like, nah, get out of here. And so the woman went to court. And so this actually went down in New Jersey. So the woman went to court. The judge granted the couple parental rights, but granted the birth mother or biological mother visitation. And so the
Mhm.
couple who paid for this woman to just carry their baby and that's it, um, literally like ruined their lives probably to them. So then New York decided to ban um, commercial surrogacy, which is paying for someone to carry your child. And so I find that whole thing fascinating, that this idea of as I was looking into it, um, one of the reasons why New York decided to ban it is because uh, some of the judges felt like it was, I forget the term that they use. I think they use the term degrading to women, sort of like, oh, just renting out her body. How do you feel like that's what it is? Do you feel like women should be able to make money off of their own womb?
I feel like it's difficult because I think it goes back to the nature versus nurture thing. Like some people feel like all women are, they have this ability to be nurturing and be a mother, while others feel like that kind of takes place after you've given birth. So I think it's interesting. Kind of like this is the same argument with sex. They say that women are more likely to get emotions than men because women are more nurturing, emotional creatures. And I would say I agree to an extent. I agree to an extent that I don't feel as if I feel as if it's emotionally, it could be emotionally scarring to a woman who now has to bear the marks of having a child. You know, her body's looking different. You know, her body is ready for a baby, and the baby's gone. Also, there's that the period where mothers go through, what is it, postpartum? Okay, now if you had the child and you don't have the child, don't you still feel like those mothers who don't have a baby could be still going through postpartum?
Could be based off of just like withdrawal, like of like hormones still in place.
Yeah. So
Um,
I feel like that in general is enough to say that, like, not because women are uncontrollable, but because there can be an emotional imbalance after you've had a baby, your body changes. So, you know, you may be more emotional. You may have developed a connection to your baby because you're in a really vulnerable state.
I don't know. I feel like the argument that it's degrading for women to sort of rent out their wombs is, how would I say, like, it's a, to me it's a patriarch how do you say that word?
Patriarchal.
Patriarchal sort of thought, because
I see that.
it's like, how can you, I just need men to stop telling women like how we feel and things of that nature.
I
um
feel you because prostitution, same thing. But you don't mind if a woman is renting her womb then, right?
like, it just, to me it's like you can't put yourself in the mind or the body of a woman, so why even make speculations about how we would feel? Because I feel like they're always doing that, especially like with abortion laws. It's sort of like you see in Alabama how they passed this, the healthcare, not healthcare, I forget what it's called, but some abortion bill that they passed.
Where if the
And it was
baby's after a certain amount of months,
where
you're
you
not
where
allowed to
it's
abort it.
illegal to get an abortion in almost every circumstance. They make it like impossible, and they also find the doctor who does it, and and if the doctor does it, he or she could get up to like 99 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so it's banning abortion in like almost every instance, whether that be rape, incest, like whatever. And so and when you see the lawmakers, they're all like white old men. So it's kind of like, it's just like we see this time and time again of men always telling women how they should feel, how they might feel. And it's like, bro, nobody's asking like, can we get some women in here? And I also feel like a lot of women, because nowadays like the anti-abortion movement is led by women, and I think that's purposeful because of, you know, the men being the face of it. It just isn't good marketing anymore in this day and
Mm-hmm.
age. um but so we see this time and time again. And as I was reading about surrogacy, one it one interesting thing that I read was commercial surrogacy is banned in other countries, like third world countries, because women are more likely to be taken advantage of. So you could have like a male, and those societies tend to live in like more outright patriarchal sort of dynamics, and women could be forced to do this just like they would be forced into prostitution. So I agreed with that. So it really depends on like location and some other factors. But if we're talking about the United States, I think that commercial surrogacy is okay, and I think that a woman should be able to um get paid um for carrying someone's baby if if she so chooses.
I agree 100%. And I love that you brought up that point about like a lot of developing nations banning this what is it called, commercial surrogacy,
Yeah.
because I feel like a lot of developing nations also have highly religious undertones, which is another reason
Yeah.
why it's so patriarchal.
Yeah.
And, I think that's also kind of interesting because of, you still see it taking place in the United States, even without that, like it's land of the free. When Elena was in the hospital and she found out she was pregnant, I had to do a double take because I think it's so fascinating that you mentioned the women's movement and how women are the face of it, because her female doctor said to her, when she asked about abortion, she said, this is a bigger conversation between you and Bill. So she's not
Yeah.
allowed to make that decision on her own. Initially,
Yeah.
male
Yeah.
doctor, I had to watch it a few times, and I
That
was
was interesting. That was so interesting because you could see that Elena was trying to figure out her options. She really did not want this. She went
yeah,
to her mother. She spoke with her doctor. She told her husband, hey, don't want it. And everyone shut her down, literally
exactly.
made her feel like she had absolutely no agency in this.
It's like a woman doesn't have a choice, but even when it's her body and the baby's in her, it's
Right.
like, look, woman, you're not
And
allowed to say anything without the man's
then we
approval.
fast forward to her breaking plates because she made a decision that she did not want to.
She even said, 3 is no more different than 4 is no more
Yeah, she was
than 3.
pissed.
I would be too.
Yeah.
It seems like she's kind of renting out her womb as well. Like, although
Right?
it's not for compensation, it's for
And
security, and
and
it
that's
kills her
why I
relationship.
have and
But
that's
that's
why I have such a problem with these men in these in political positions, making these laws, because they're often the ones that are like benefiting um from women sort of having to forego their future and livelihood just to sustain an image, whether that be due to like religious reasons, social reasons.
uh-huh. Now, you want to know something interesting about the Scarlet Letter, which I was talking about earlier? In the Scarlet Letter, they talk about how adultery is really only for women. Like only a woman can commit adultery, even though the
Yeah.
man may be the married one and the woman
Yeah.
could be single.
Isn't that
She's the
crazy?
adulteress. There's no translation for a man who commits adultery. So it's like,
Women,
it's one dimensional.
women are always held like to the highest regard, like to these like unattainable expectations. And it's like, uh, and it's funny because Elena wants to be held up like that.
You
Like
think
she sees herself as that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the pinnacle for
I
her.
I feel like her community is kind of shaping that
Yeah.
identity for her and her family.
Yeah. She has no identity, which is why her and Jamie sort of bicker, and there's this tension between them, right? Because and he also has that privilege of being a man and being able to stick around and not really worry about like protection and like wages, you know, with like the gender wage gap and all of those things. So he has these sort of privileges and where he can like, you know, go after his own ambitions, where women, we have to be a little bit more calculated. We have to, you know, discern our risks more and see what it is that we can do because we have so many um different obstacles.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's why they named the episode The Uncanny. There was in addition to what Pauline referenced for the assignment they had in class, it was really like a homage to Sigmund
Mm.
Freud's paper, The Uncanny, which is really all about identity and how you're in a situation
Ooh,
that's like strangely familiar
yeah,
rather than mysterious.
yeah. And also how the assignment was to capture your monstrous self,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was so beautiful because, you know, like you said earlier, there's things that you love about Mia, but but overall you were sort of like not, you know, like you were not suspicious of her, but I don't know. You can tell me how you feel about her, but
Now that I see who she is, I understand because as I mentioned like before, I don't feel like she had an identity prior. And this is why again I feel like this episode, the name is kind of fitting. I also feel like it ties into some uh blank slate theory, like it's called tabula rasa. I took like a little basic psychology class. And like this particular theory, it argues that human beings are born as blank slates. They have a blank identity, and their actual identity is defined by their life events after birth. I think that was one of the biggest examples of that was Mia, how she kind of was being molded into being a lesbian. She was molded into being this artist, and it's like, okay, that was her first sexual
no,
experience.
being an artist was who she is.
It's who she is, but I feel like Pauline kind of took her under her wing because she had a vision for her to be something. She had her own vision for who she could be. Like when
Yeah, but Mia was gonna be an artist no matter what.
absolutely, but I feel like Pauline wanted to kind of use her and make her live like I feel like she was living vicariously through Mia because she saw some type of talent that she had. Like I don't know any other teacher that sees a student and takes them out and gives them cocaine and gives them alcohol and has sex with them and lets them spend a night. Like I don't know, I thought it was a little strange that their relationship was really strange, and the only thing I got from the teacher, that where her passion came from, was she saw something in her in terms of her art. You
Hmm.
know how people are like, some people say like they're pansexual, like they don't see a gender or anything, they just see a personality. I feel like her teacher, if there's a name for this, didn't see her age and didn't see her like who she really was. She saw her artistic abilities, and that's what she was attracted to.
Mm, that's interesting.
I
Yeah.
felt like it was fueling her, like they bonded over it. They were naked taking pictures of each other. That was her teacher. She was helping her with her assignment that she gave her. telling her this is not it? What happened to what was in your portfolio? Like, she was steering her in another direction, even though Mia had other ideas.
I mean, I don't know. I just feel like that's the job of a professor. Um, I, I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like although she did sort of have this vision for Mia and sort of pushed her, I think Mia would have been great regardless of her teacher.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and I don't think, maybe it's because I'm looking at manipulation or mold as this negative thing. I don't find, if that's what she was doing, I don't find that to be a negative thing.
I don't think it was negative, but I think it was kind of like controlling as well. Like, I feel like she was kind of dominating her. Like,
Because I feel like, to me, honest, you know what, it did come off as, when you add in the factors of their sexual relationship, just like the inappropriateness of her, like, even though she's of age, of like her sleeping over and stuff like that, and how they just bonded so quickly,
mm-hmm.
um you kind of got the sense like, okay, is she really that great of an artist for you to do all this? You know?
Exactly. I kind of wondered too, which is why I felt like it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if she was like deeply. I'm sure Mia is talented, but I'm not sure if she was. Would she have been like considered a pedophile?
I mean, she's of age, so I guess not, but it sort of reminds me, and I hate to even bring up this fucking show, but have you seen Tiger King?
No.
God. Well, you shouldn't
I'm
waste your time,
gonna
but
try. I promise. Everyone keeps
have you
talking
heard of
about it.
it?
I have no choice. Everyone's talking about it.
Okay. Oh, well, I don't want to like spoil it or whatever, but I don't know. Do you care?
You could say it. Go ahead.
So in Tiger King, I'm pretty sure you know vaguely what it's about. Fucking Joe Exotic. He has this what is it's not like a zoo, but he has like I guess this compound of tigers, this sort of like tiger show that he runs. And at the time he's like around 51 years old, and this happened twice where had he basically like manipulated these young guys straight out of high school to be
Mm.
with him. And it was very like, it was very creepy. And it's sort of like the whole show is just weird because you get this sort of entertainment factor, but you also see how, you know, just how lowly they live.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has like murder, sex, wild animals. Like, it has all these different components of sensationalism. And it reminded me of when Joe Exotic sort of like went for these like straight out of high school guys and like essentially kind of like turned them out. I don't know if that's like a politically incorrect thing to say, but one of the guys that he married, who was straight out of high school when Joe was 51, ended up committing suicide. And if you look at the footage, he just looks so like, he looked like molded. Like, because there's this audio where Joe asks him, hey, you, because he's really attractive. This guy's really attractive. So he asks him, he's like, oh, so are you gay, you straight? And the guy says that he's straight. And then he's like, oh, when you watch porn, do you watch it when the guy with a big dick or a small dick gives it to the
Uh,
girl? And then he's like, I guess the big one. And then he's like, well, you ain't that straight. And it
I
was
already knew
so
it.
eerie and disgusting. I'm like, what are you doing? And so he's sort of like, was like molding him, like, to be something that he might not really be. You know what I'm saying?
I
And
feel
so, I got those vibes with Mia and her
Chloe.
professor.
Yes.
For sure.
I definitely got those vibes. Like when I feel like her brother even got those vibes when they were
Yeah.
sitting at the dinner table and he was trying to convince her not to have the baby. I'm sorry, he was trying to convince her to have the baby. And Pauline jumped in and said, "Do you realize your sister is one of the most talented artists I have ever met? Anyone could be a mother. Few can do what your sister does." And then she adds her little 2 cents. "In fact, no one can." What is that? What is that all about? I feel like that was a little manipulative.
Yeah. No, it
Like
was like it was
gassing her head up. I mean, I'm sure she's a great artist, but I feel like it had some type of sexual undertone. And I feel like
yeah.
her
Yeah.
brother got that
And
too.
that was weird too, how like I don't know, I just found it weird how her guest before Mia was like in the hospital for pneumonia. I don't know. I don't know.
Glad you brought that up. Now, what do you think that was? Why do you think they
Girl,
talked about him?
it could have been somebody else that she was like, you know, somebody else like Mia.
You know, I got the impression that that was some type of like 80s motif because they talked about like they really were referencing like a lot of things that were taking place around the 80s, like hip hop sampling. Pauline in particular brought up when they were talking about who's that artist that there was an artist that she was going to have a show with, and she asked her after, well, how do you feel about Grandmaster Flash? Do you feel like what he's doing is boring because he's
Appropriation.
sampling the tom appropriating because he's sampling the tom toms? Like that was like a 80s motif. Grandmaster Flash sampled the tom toms in The Message, which is like one of the most popular hip hop songs to ever come out in the world. So I felt like those references, especially with the friend, I felt like they all had like an 80s undertone. I
Mhm.
felt like the friend given she said he was he was in the hospital with pneumonia for weeks.
Yeah.
What healthy person is being treated in the hospital with pneumonia for weeks? If you're in
Yeah.
the hospital for days, you can recover from pneumonia with treatment.
Maybe it was
So
drugs, bro.
I got the impression that this friend of hers was HIV positive or had AIDS.
Mm.
Because how long was Mia living with her? This man never came back.
Yeah.
She had a whole baby. She was like fully pregnant and we never heard of this man. And, you know, I feel like that was some type of low undertone for either. I kind of got the vibe that it was either for the Black community or the LGBTQ community.
Yeah. And it's interesting too because I was thinking about how in the last episode, when Reese was telling Mia that, you know, she's a bad mom, and then Mia retorted with, well, you had options.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see in this episode how even though it may not have looked like it, essentially Elena had options, right?
Yep.
She went to her mother for information. She went to her doctor. She went to her husband. She had time to think about this, to get like second opinions and whatnot. Mia saw that letter and freaked out and said, "Well, I got to go do this surrogacy thing because I need to stay in school." There
Exactly.
was no other option. Her brother, like even when she spoke to her brother on the phone, I was just so like like kind of repulsed by his response. He was just like, "Well, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I'm saying? Like just do what you got to do." Um
I was
and I
disappointed
was a
that
little confused by that because he offered her this money before. It just seemed like as a brother you might want to just do more or try and help in such a frantic situation, but he seemed like his hands were tied. There was nothing he can do about it. So Mia had no options.
I was disappointed in the guidance that Mia had when it came to things like the fact that her child is really like an income situation, and then her virginity is like a decision. And that's why I feel like it helped us get a better idea on how she's been molded into who she is now.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't see that in her, I think there were a lot of question marks about, number one, why did she go to Shaker? Number two, why was she being sexually active with a man in the car with her baby? If she feels like these things don't have any value, she's not going to see it as it's not going to be as shocking to her as it may be to other people, because she has different values.
If she doesn't see what is valuable.
She doesn't see like her virginity as valuable. Usually girls, young women,
Yeah.
virginity is sacred. Virginity is fragile. Hers is just like, look, girl, you want me to help you? She got a turkey baster in her.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
helping her out.
But
Like,
that's
it's a
but
deal
that's
breaker.
often the experience. I don't know about you and what you've observed, but I find that is the experience of some Black women that I know,
You might be right.
especially ones who come from single parent households, some ones who don't really have an active or present parent. Because
Yeah,
even
true.
though Mia had two parents, they were just so far out there.
Yeah, they probably never even had to talk with her, else they said something wild to her.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting how sort of depending on race, you're sort of groomed differently.
I thought it was funny because the only reference they ever made about sex in Mia is she's either going to be a hooker or a lesbian.
Yeah,
That's about it.
yeah. And you see how like it's funny too because Reese's character is so stringent when it comes to sex, scheduling it. And Mia's character is sort of like free with it, like not
Exactly.
because she wants to be, but because to her she has to be. And it's not really much of a thought. Even when Pearl said, oh yeah, my mom doesn't think sex is a bit, you have to have feelings with sex.
Mm-hmm. And remember, we thought she could have potentially been like a sex worker in the past because of her attitude. But I think it's interesting because hookers and lesbians, those are choices that women have to do whatever they want to do with their bodies. A prostitute or hooker has the choice. They're not like just being, unless they're in sex trafficking, they have a choice. A lesbian made a choice with what she would like to do with her body. For some reason, a woman's choice, whether if it's not with like a heterosexual man or if it's not on the man's time, on the man's dime, is intimidating to people.
Yeah, yeah. This episode was jam-packed, bro.
Right?
It was a lot. It was also like triggering. It was triggering in so many ways.
You know what I thought was funny, and that's kind of what made me think about like the whole tabula rasa theory, is at the very end when she was in the car crying, bawling her eyes out. They were playing a song that was saying everybody wants somebody to be their own piece of clay. I thought it was so random because I'm like, this is a happy sounding song, and she was just bawling. I
Who
kind of
was?
got to Mia. This was at the very end, before
Mm.
she even picked up the phone. I think this was before she even picked up the phone and called. She
To
was
be honest with you, there has to be more to this story, the surrogacy story, because to me, at those times in the 80s, if there are no laws, really, I don't think there were any laws at all surrounding, actually probably in the 90s now. So she does have right to be worried, but I don't know. I feel like she has a fighting chance um to still have custody of her daughter, even if this guy was to catch her. But I feel like she also feels like, worried about her safety. So we
absolutely.
don't know what contact they've had since from her being like a baby till Pearl being a teenager now.
Yeah. And it wasn't even her plan though. Like she didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So that couple's decision kind of molded her real life. Like, she took it upon
Yeah.
herself and
Yeah.
decided to keep the baby, but that was not her plan.
That was not in the
That was the
plan.
couple's plan. I feel like she was crying because she realized that she was being really molded, and a lot of people had hands in her life,
Yeah.
especially Pauline. I thought that moment was
Just
touching because
just like Reese too.
I
Just
got
like
the
Reese.
Mhm.
Just like Reese.
Oh yeah. But I got the impression in that moment with her breaking down, I think she was coming to an epiphany that, yes, her teacher loved her, but that was her teacher, number one. And even though she wanted to stay to have this exciting relationship with her teacher and go to school, she ended up dropping out. And she realized that other people were really molding her and dictating her life, especially Pauline. I had the impression that she was
Yeah.
breaking
Yeah.
down because she realized she was being taken advantage of. Now she's
Yeah.
a child, no father. She doesn't have a traditional,
Yeah.
she's not in a traditional situation. And the woman who
Yeah.
was her support system, which looked like it was more so for desperation, the woman's gone. Now she has no financial stability, nowhere to go. And I think that made her realize, like, wow, what was I thinking? When you break up with a guy and you're like, wow, he was hideous. Like,
Yeah.
was I really with that guy? I feel like that was a moment for her.
Yeah. Oh, we've all been there. Yeah, for sure. Especially the way she just was so cavalier, like, oh, okay, well,
I would have
I'll
been
let you know.
scared from day one. First time she ever went out with her, she gave her cocaine and shoved a glass of alcohol in her hand.
So inappropriate. And then, like, Mia just took it.
Mm-hmm. Because she was feeding into the pressure. That's her teacher. She wants to look cool. She doesn't want to look young
Yeah, which
or virgin.
was why it was so inappropriate for her teacher to do that. I remember I had a professor who wouldn't even let us follow him on social media until after we graduated.
Wow.
So times have changed.
I had a professor who was cute, actually. I had a fine professor one day. Well, not a professor, but a teacher. And he always used to say things like, "Are you going to the club?" Like he used to flirt, yo. He used to say, "Well, you look like you could get into the club. You look like you're grown enough." He would like invite me to the club. He was cute too, but that's inappropriate. I knew that was inappropriate, so I didn't know how to respond to him. I would just laugh
How
and
old,
smile.
like, what grade was this?
Fifth, sixth grade. And he was a very attractive
What?
professor. Like, if any of my classmates hear this, like, we had conversations about him as adults. Like, ooh, I'm not gonna say his name. He was very attractive, but yeah, he used to be like that, and that's intimidating to young kids. Like,
It
you're fat
is. It
because
is.
someone thinks
Yep.
you're older, and you go to the club and you're beautiful, but at the same time, like, you
Mhm.
realize that's some creepy shit.
Mhm. Wow. Mm-mm. So yeah, like, I don't know, man. Like, this episode was a mess.
You were talking about Elena before. How do you feel about Elena's life?
I mean, I feel like they're Elena and Mia are very similar in that they were being controlled, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's funny how there's tension between them now because I really do see their origins as sort of similar. I look at Mia as someone who had a plan. Her plan was to get out of her house and go to New York and go to art school. And Reese, Elena had this plan too to sort of get from under, her mother and do her own thing and be this Virgo person. And so they're similar in so many ways, and I'm wondering how we're going to see that play out in the future episodes. If we're going to see that play out.
I'm a little upset because I wanted to see what happened next with Isabel and the fire. That's
Yeah,
what I was waiting on.
yeah. But there's only 2 more episodes left, right?
Yeah. And now
So
we got a better idea on why Elena and Isabel's relationship may be a little tumultuous. Look at what she was going through when she had her. She didn't really
exactly.
want her.
She was unwanted, and I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like it gives the audience this impression that it's sort of like an old wives' tale, right? Like, be happy during your pregnancy or else. And it's kind of like, well, how much of that is factual and how much of that is just like mythical? Because I mean, scientifically, I mean, you know what? I don't even know. But when I was pregnant, I heard, oh, don't cry because you don't want to upset the baby and da, 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 da. Like you want to be in good spirits and not stress the woman out because you want to have like a healthy baby. And so to me, it's sort of Izzy being the one who doesn't have control per se, being the one that she essentially didn't want is trickery, in my opinion, and sort of it's playing with our emotions because it didn't have to be like that. Izzy could have been just like Lexi, in my opinion.
I do agree with that idea that your feelings transfer, like it transfers from mother to baby. I agree with that idea because that's also a concept that people talk about when it comes to, say, slavery and PTSD. They feel like uh children.
Epigenetics.
Can you say it again?
Epigenetics.
Yeah, children who are descendants of slaves, even children who are, say, Korean. They did a study on the Virginia Tech shooter who was Korean, and they felt like because Korea dealt with a lot of oppression, they were colonized by, I believe, Japan or Taiwan for a very long time until the early 90s. They felt as if he had some type of developed PTSD in his genetics because of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what his community went through. They say that with slavery as well. Like people, a lot of children may overeat, like in the Black community because their parents starved during slavery.
Yeah. I agree with that too. I feel like there's been enough research to show that that's valid, but I also feel like certain things could just be passed down genetically from either or parent that you just can't really decipher what that is.
Absolutely. I feel like emotions and even experiences, I do feel like they're inherited in a sense to the child. And even though the child may not recall a certain moment or
Yeah,
recall
like
a certain
depression, yeah.
emotion when they went through it, it's because it was genetic.
Yeah. Yeah, and that must be so frustrating, just honestly to like have a bit of empathy for Reese because like to know yourself as you are today and to look back in your past and think about those memories, it must be really hurtful as a mom.
I got the idea that she did everything right in her eyes, in society's eyes, in her husband's eyes. For a long time, she was the perfect mother. You saw how her friend was jealous of her because she's fertile all the time. Her job, she's an overachiever. I feel like having Izzy in particular, that's what broke her. It made her feel like a failure. That's when she
Yeah,
realized she's not perfect. She's not
yeah,
perfect at all.
yeah. And it really goes to show uh, that we are like limited, like we're not limitless people. Like we have boundaries. Like, 3 was like her cap.
Exactly.
You know
Poor
what I'm saying? Yeah. It really goes to show that how people can't sustain everything And we should really just stop trying to live up to this perfection. And that whole ideal of being this perfect mom really just, ooh, grinds my gears. It grinds my gears because society is guilty of perpetuating this. And honestly, it's guilty of some of the downfalls it's caused.
Yeah, like what is a perfect mom anyway? Elena did everything she could. And did you not see Lexi complaining because she didn't have any obstacles, any hardships? Even when you do everything right and your child doesn't experience any obstacles or anything traumatizing, that can still be an indication that you're not a perfect mom, because then you shelter your child, you coddle your child. But if
Yeah.
you expose your child to those things, then you're not a perfect mom, because
Yeah.
dangerous. You're allowing them to make bad choices. So there's really no right or wrong or no in between.
Right. I was listening to this podcast earlier, and this guy was like, he was sharing a story about how I think his uncle passed away from some sort of cancer. And he said something that really resonated with me, which was um his uncle didn't pass away to cancer. His uncle passed away really through lack of insurance,
Mm.
which just hit me because it's like we know it, right? It's like it's almost as how like some of these like executions are just state sanctioned, right? And so it just it infuriates me because I see how the systems and like world just continues to break people's heart in the name of the legal system.
Yeah.
And it's just like it, right? Like it's just so maddening. Like I just don't understand. And so that's why I had so much empathy for Mia, because I just feel like systematically so many things were against her, like religion, like just being black, being a black woman, like, and all those different, obstacles.
Yeah. And I mean, just to play off of that, she was in New York City just a few years after that. The Central Park Five took place. They were completely innocent. They were accused of rape,
Right.
and they didn't do it. And it took these young boys' innocence.
And also to just see how Mia just sort of, you know, went straight, like there was no like hesitation with her decision to keep the baby. She just had a plan and she decided to execute.
Yeah, she's a straight shooter.
She's a straight shooter, and sort of like that's kind of how you have to be, especially as a black person in this country. It's like you can't miss a step. You're not allowed to.
I agree, but I feel like, in my opinion, I can only say from my personal experience, I don't feel like I have the luxury of being a straight shooter. I feel like everything
Mhm.
I do has to be planned. It has to make sense. It has to be strategic, because when you make decisions on the fly, sometimes you make the wrong decision. Sometimes you mess
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
afford to mess up.
Yeah.
Get caught slipping,
You
you may
can't
never
get
come
caught
back.
slipping. You can't,
Exactly.
which is which is so funny because Reese's mom is sort of like, "Oh, honey, you don't have to do these things." And, "Oh, I find it admirable that you were able to work for so long, and you should be satisfied with that." And it's like, wow, like that's so that must be so nice to live that reality.
Right? I feel like Elena's about to get caught slipping though with that number.
Oh, for sure. She's
She's
about to
about to
get
get
caught.
caught slipping.
Word.
And that's, despite her privilege can't really protect her from things like that. Because obviously her community values marriage and perception and keeping families together. So
Ooh,
on
I'm
her.
glad you said it. I'm glad you said it. And that's interesting too, because she has all of this like social, like cultural status, right?
Mhm.
Her education, her family unit. And Mia doesn't really have any of those things. Mia is educated. She's this, artist. She is intellectual, but you know, she's this Black single mom. So
Mia had to sacrifice for her children. Elena is still
yeah,
struggling with sacrificing because her husband is saying, look, you don't have to work. This is too
yeah.
much. You can just go part-time. She's like, no,
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah, for sure.
she does not want to sacrifice. She feels like she can either do it all or else she's not giving up her dream
Yeah.
because that's what she wants to do.
And now that you say that, it's kind of like, how dare you call me a bad mother? I literally sacrificed everything for my
Mm-hmm.
child. My child is the center of my entire universe.
But mind you, I get the idea her job is not that important because her mother said nobody reads that newspaper
Yeah,
anyway.
no, her job is trash. She goes in whenever she wants to. It's
Exactly.
not even a real thing.
She just goes in and spies on people.
Word, and then leaves. Who
You
does that? Like, I'm so sick and tired of Reese's freaking privilege in this damn show. She got this nice, beautiful house, this perfect husband, perfect kids, including Izzy.
Shalana Holmes.
Like, selling home, she got a job. She has economic status. Like, girl, what more do you want?
She wants the power, the control. She likes to be praised. She likes to be smart. She likes to be perfect. She likes to feel valued.
She's
That's what she
missing
wants.
something. She's missing something.
She's
And and
missing professional fulfillment. Her
you
job
know what
sucks.
she's missing? She's missing Jamie.
You think so?
Girl.
I feel like it's deeper than that. I mean, it could be because I feel like she might be missing him a lot more now because he has this prominent job that could give her status if she were with him. When he was trying to travel the world and not have a plan, she wasn't messing with him anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was messing with her husband who was doing something good, doing something to bring in the money enough to make her have 3 children before she even had Izzy.
So why she keep going back to him?
I feel like she keeps going back to him because of the what if. Like, oh, he's my high school. I feel like he might be like her high school sweetheart, her college sweetheart, and that might be her comfort zone because that's who she grew up with. She might be one of those people that feel like, oh, we've been together in high school, we're going to be together in college, and we're going to be together forever. I feel like that was like her little fantasy, and he broke that. So because he broke that, she always feels like, well, what if he didn't? Our lives could have been perfect. We could have had perfect babies. I could have been the perfect wife to him because she's not being a perfect wife to Bill right now. So she's already messed up. Looking at Jamie is looking at a second chance, another blank slate for her to do over.
Yeah.
Poor Mia doesn't even have that. It was one and done with the turkey baster.
I feel so sorry for Mia because it's like her life really did not have to end up that way.
I
Not
feel
saying
sorry
like
for
it's this horrible thing, but like she struggled a lot.
I feel sorry for her mostly because I feel like she was I if I were Mia, I'd be sexually traumatized. Like I feel like she was taken advantage of by her teacher. I can't look at it like it was love. To me, it was very strange.
Yeah.
I thought the dynamic was very strange, and it's something that someone could only get away with in the 80s. Because again, the Mary Kay Letourneau, that happened in the 90s. So, this was a time where people were a little more laid back. But I feel like if this happened now, she would not be able to get away with that. That was abuse.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting how we see her um presumably having sex for money in that scene when she was in the car, and then juxtapose
Mhm.
that with Reese saying to Jamie, "Oh, you took advantage of me." Just again shows you that privilege. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's just I'm so intrigued by this show and just can't wait to figure out to see the ending because I don't. I don't know where it's gonna go, to be honest.
Yeah. Now, do you remember when Pauline told Mia that she would have the exhibit with that popular artist? I don't remember the name of this
Yeah, I
guy.
don't remember the name either, but I remember the scene.
Well, I remember it not happening. And this is what's making me feel like, was the teacher
Yeah.
manipulating her? Because
Yeah,
she
I
wasn't
don't know.
showing. She didn't have a big belly at the time. So did they just skip over that moment, or did it just not happen at all?
I don't know. I don't I would assume that we would see it because that would be like a big deal.
Exactly. And I think about that and it makes me feel like her teacher kind of has this little manipulative, like pimp mentality, because she was
Yeah.
asking her, well, how do you feel? Do you remember her asking,
Yeah.
how do you feel about this artist, before she even said that she can have the show with him? She kept asking her how she felt.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't like that either. Like, stop playing with me.
Yeah,
Don't
this
play
is
with
why
me
I feel
like
like the
that.
teacher has some type of manipulative tendencies. I also
Yeah.
felt like her friend,
Even her tone of voice from the very first scene was so seductive and
Mhm.
luring.
I also felt like her female friend might have been like, I don't know if you ever saw the episode of Sex in the City where Charlotte becomes a lesbian, and there's this really elite. They talk about this very elite, very influential lesbian communities in New York City where Charlotte was able to get into the best clubs. Charlotte had all of these privileges as a result of, being around them. So much that she didn't want to tell them that she was straight, because then she would no longer get those benefits. I felt like that was her, Pauline and her friend were very reminiscent of that powerful lesbian community in New York City, who did all the cool things, who were the in the know, wore the
Yeah.
best designer outfits, and had the power.
Which is why I was surprised that she continued her relationship with her till this day.
I was surprised as well. I was surprised. I wonder if she were still alive, how would their relationship be? How would their dynamic be?
Well, Mia's a no nonsense bitch now, so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Mia done been through some shit. I feel like actually next episode we might see her in Mia in other towns and some of the issues that she might have ran into.
I wonder. I wonder because Shaker, now that we know she wasn't going to Shaker for anyone or anything in particular, she was kind of traveling to wherever her destination was.
She was
I'm
essentially
assuming
a
it wasn't New
fugitive.
York.
Yeah.
I know she's not trying to go back to New York. So she's just going wherever the wind blows
Yeah.
her. Like, I don't even know. We don't know where her destination is, and she doesn't either. That's why she said, wherever we're going, I'll let you know when we get there.
Which is also like sort of preemptive of remember that scene where Pearl spends the night at Reese's house, and then like Mia immediately like has this vision, and then like races over there and she's like, get in the car now.
Oh, yeah.
And also that scene where Mia says to Reese she took this job to protect Pearl from her. So it's sort of like preemptive because it's like she knew that this woman was going to cause her problems. She knew that, this woman could essentially take away her child. Just this sort of Mia is allowing this child to be taken away from her, Reese's best friend.
Yeah, she probably did, because they think so differently. Like, honestly, I don't understand Mia's logic, but I feel like I don't understand it because it's not meant for someone like me. I think I lean more towards Elena's logic when it comes to certain things, although I admire Mia's bravery in terms of the very, very spontaneous um decisions she makes. Unstable, you never know where she's going to end up, what's going to happen to her, but she doesn't care. She makes these decisions anyway. I admire her for that, but I couldn't live like that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's obviously this fear And I don't think that Mia has properly mourned her brother. I just it, I just don't understand why you would make such a decision like this based off of your brother's death, and I don't necessarily think that's the only reason. Um, but even if it has to do with like your childhood and you being restricted in the capacity that you were, I still don't understand her decision to take this baby. But again, that's a completely personal, subjective decision that no one else can understand but you.
I feel like her baby is um her best piece ever. You know, as her brother said, that's
Yes, that's why
that's
she didn't want to sell
more.
the photo. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
that's her baby. That's everything her
Oh
baby.
my, I mean, that's part of the reason she don't want to get caught up either.
Mhm. That's her struggle. It's become her identity.
That
She
is
gave
her.
up everything she knew and loved, everything she aspired to
Yes.
be for the child.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. And it also plays into this sort of like duality of life, like its negatives and its positives. Because if you look at it, her pregnancy was this negative and positive. Or it is
Yeah.
that for her. Like it was positive because she it gave her like freedom in a sense. And it was negative because she has to protect it through these really like wild means.
Yeah. And if she didn't even have the baby, I feel like Pearl was her new start, her blank slate, her tabula
Yeah.
rasa. Like
Yeah.
that was how she began life. Because
Yes.
remember, she was Mia Wright. She rewrote her
Yeah.
own
She
history
reinvents. She
in the
said,
world.
"Not today, bitch. I'm a new
Yeah.
person."
Kind of like Empire. Lucius Lyon. He made up the name Lucius Lyon. That wasn't his name. But
Yeah.
then he developed this family. Now it's the Lion family. He got a
Yeah.
little lion, a
Yeah.
middle lion, and that's kind of what
Her
he did.
her mother telling her that she could not go to the funeral was a life-changing event for her. Like that was a moment in which her neurons like snapped and like went the other way because she completely shedded like her immaturity, so to speak, in that moment.
And I feel like a piece of her brother is still with her. I feel like her brother is like the logical voice, like the good one, the good voice and the bad voice. I feel like her brother is the good voice, the voice of reason for why she makes some of the more logical decisions as an adult. Like why she's staying in Shaker. Like I feel like, the stability and um moving forward with her life, with her daughter, with her legacy. I do feel like that plays a part in it because prior to that, I feel like she made a lot of irrational decisions. But that's because she didn't have any motive. From what I know, no one passed away. She didn't have any hardships or anything that really molded her like that. Then her brother passed, she got pregnant, she had a relationship, just so many things happened to her where now she's really becoming who she is, and she's taken things from these different people in these different situations and becoming her own. I feel like she took a lot of things from her teacher. Like I feel like she learned a lot of things from her teacher, like when her professor was talking about the monster and loving the monster fiercely. I feel like she took that and it's incorporated into who she is now. She has this aggressive nature about her with her daughter and her art and her privacy and her property and the way she does things. And I feel like she got that from the teacher, her professor, which was
Mm-hmm.
also her lover, Pauline.
And we can see that she's grown so much from this naive girl to this woman who can sort of read her daughter's thoughts, who's like so in sync with her daughter's emotions,
Yeah.
who just has this sort of like um keen sense of like her surroundings, like just being aware of Reese's intentions and just understanding that. So She's definitely sort of went through a transition.
And even the car is so symbolic. Like it's her
Oh,
protection. It's her
right.
brother.
Oh
It's
my
her
God.
brother's car.
Yep. It's
So the fact that she's riding around in her brother's car, that's what's keeping
yo.
her safe. That's
Wow.
her salvation.
Yeah. It really just shows you too how we don't shed everything from our past.
Yeah.
It shows you how some of our like childlike ways still show up and are significant in our adult lives, which adulting is like literally the worst.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna tell you a story. Well, I'm gonna share with the world. A lot of people, people who have known me in the past, most likely know this about me. But when my house burned down in 2008, one of the last things I purchased was a Hello Kitty wallet. And when I purchased it, I didn't really care for Hello Kitty. I didn't really, I just bought it because it was cute. I was young. And when I lost almost everything, that wallet was about the one of the very few things I had left. So as I grew older, I became obsessed with Hello Kitty. As an adult, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, I just used to buy a bunch of Hello Kitty merchandise. I had Hello Kitty teddy bears sleeping in the bed with me and my boyfriend. I have, I got a lot of Hello Kitty stuff. Like as an adult, people buy me Hello Kitty stuff because when I see it, even though it's childish, as an adult, it still gives me comfort.
Yeah, so her brother's car gives her comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Mia
Oh, it's
gives
a
her
Hello Kitty.
comfort. I mean, Pearl gives her comfort. Yeah. It's sad. Both of their stories are really sad.
Yeah. I never thought I would feel for Elena because I feel like in the earlier episodes, we were taught not to feel for her. She's evil.
Yeah.
Um,
Hated her.
she's privileged. How dare she? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like that's how she was really positioned. And then now we see this human side of her, and it's like,
Yeah.
this is why she operates this way. She
Yeah,
didn't get
but
mercy
you
from people
called it though, because she wasn't. I was more like down on her, but you were just like, well, she doesn't seem to have bad intentions. She doesn't seem to be fully aware that she's being like low key racist. Like,
Yeah. And I wouldn't notice that until I could see the contrast between her and Lexi. Lexi knows what she's doing. Lexi knows what she's doing. While Elena
yeah,
is like, I'm privileged, I'm sheltered, I'm white, I feel bad about it. What can I do? I don't want to feel this way. She's not saying, oh my gosh, get away from me, you're poor and black. She's saying, oh my goodness, I feel guilty that I have all this. Now that I realize I have this and you don't have anything, I'm going to do this for you. She's trying, she just doesn't get it. It's not her life.
yeah, no, yeah, that's true. I wasn't giving her that leeway, but it's so funny how we have to like literally know people's personal shit to treat them like a human and to like offer them some sort of grace.
That's so sad. And I think it has a lot to do with, I can't say everywhere, but I could say like in New York City in particular, a lot of people are trying to hustle you. So even when you see the homeless people outside, you got to be careful because they might just be homeless for a living, going back to their wealthy homes, or you never know. So you don't want to be the idiot just got swindled. Have you ever met someone like a beggar on the street who begs and they're not really in need? I met a guy years ago in where I used to live. He used to sit outside of Popeyes and he used to beg, and he was in a wheelchair. He used to beg for money and say he was hungry. One day my mother went and bought him food. Do you know he went out to the parking lot so quick and tried to sell the meal? So you never know who you're coming across. Like you never know.
No, you don't.
And I think that's why people are so hardened now. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, these people are homeless. You don't have a heart, they're homeless. Well, they might be homeless right now, but those are torn up clothes that they put on to take your money, and they're really wealthy, or they're really drug addicts and you're supporting their habit. Um, there's an actress, Maya Campbell. I don't know if you remember Maya Campbell from In the House.
Yeah.
A beggar now. She's begging outside of a gas station in Los Angeles. And there was a girl who told the story about how she helped take care of her one day because she remembered who she was. And she realized that that was not the life she's supposed to have. She's mentally ill.
Yeah.
It's so unfortunate because you can't ever really tell who needs help and who is who you need help from.
Say it again. Say it again. That's why, like, I was so mad with Reese because I'm like, yo, don't bark up the wrong tree. Because I still feel like with Mia, she's barking up the wrong tree, and she could do a lot of damage to her because of her privilege.
You might be right, because if she finds that case, or if she finds any police reports about Mia running away with a child,
Yeah,
and you
it's
know she will,
over.
because she got the cop who's a friend.
It's over. It's over. And then she, has the potential to like ruin her life. And Mia is not going down without a fight, boo boo.
Now it all makes sense. That's why it was such a big deal when the cop came to her car when she first came to shake her, and when the cop got Pearl when she had the bike and she was in the junkyard with Moody. That's why she was so upset.
Wait, say that again.
When the cop first came to her car when she landed in Shaker,
Yeah.
that's why it was such a big deal, because they were on the run. And that's why she was scared about Pearl with the bike in the junkyard with Moody getting caught by the cop,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
because people are actually after her. And if they went to the police, because again, I don't think she gave back that money. So if she didn't get back that money, she signed a contract with them. She signed a contractual agreement and dipped, and probably kept their money. Like that's
Yeah.
a triple negative.
Yeah. I mean, she was smart in telling them that she had a miscarriage. But
Yeah.
even then, like, they were trying to contact her and she just dipped. So she does look sus.
And that's probably why she works under the table as well.
Yeah. Because it's like you have this educated woman. Like, she's not stupid.
Is
But
she
yet she
educated?
has these lowly jobs.
Is she educated? Because I don't recall her actually getting a degree. And that's why it's like she went through all
Yeah.
that and she has nothing to show for it. She's intelligent, definitely.
Well, I guess, yeah, maybe that's what I mean. I mean, and I also feel like you don't have to get your education from an institution. I feel like she's someone who is very academic within her own right as well.
Absolutely. She learned. She learned from the school of hard knocks.
Yeah, also I just feel like she just is very like academic in that way. Like you saw Izzy listening to her album. I don't know whose album that was, reading her magazines. Like I feel like artists are people who like to learn.
You want to know something? I really feel like she got all of that from Pauline.
No, I don't want to give her too much credit.
I feel like she got a lot of it from her, like her style, her artistic process. Remember how we used to see them all the time in the dark room developing photos? Now we only see Mia in the dark room developing photos. It's kind of the same scenario. It's just one person now instead of two.
I mean, I feel like that was more so of like a romantic relationship. I feel like, oof, even like getting back to that and how weird their relationship was, it must be nice to like share a passion with someone who is as passionate as you about art or whatever it may be.
Absolutely. Like my boyfriend, he went to school for photography, and he actually was the one who purchased my very first professional camera, my Nikon, for me.
Mhm.
So, he used to walk around taking pictures of me all the time.
Mhm.
When you find someone who is passionate about art and life as you are, it's a wonderful feeling. But I think I got the feeling that it had all the makings to be something good, but there was something with a dark undertone about their relationship that I just really couldn't get with. even when you look past the age, because
Yeah.
Anika Nani Rose, she doesn't look that horribly old. It's just like something wasn't right with their dynamic. I felt like she was a little too dominant. I felt like, now you have to look at the age, because why is she really taking over this woman,
Yeah,
this
she
young
really,
lady like this?
yeah, she like really asserted herself.
What if she didn't want to do cocaine? She kind of just gave it to her. She threw
Yeah.
the drink at her.
Knowing that this was essentially a fucking child, like,
You know why I think she threw the drink at her when her friend came? Remember when her friend started approaching them and she gave her the drink? I feel like she gave her the drink because she wanted her to appear older, so her friend didn't know she was underage.
maybe.
And that's why I think something was real spooky about her relationship with Pauline.
Yeah.
Something just was off. Even though they
Yeah.
produced, these beautiful moments in the dark room. But even in the dark room, I felt like it was Pauline taking control of her, or, forcing her inner being to come out, whatever that is.
Mhm.
I don't feel like it was Mia being free. I feel like it was Mia trying to fulfill expectations that
Yeah.
grow up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's sad because I feel like her sexual encounters are all about expectations. Like, it's kind of sad.
What do you mean?
Okay, she has a baby with a turkey baster because she signed a contract with with this family to give her child away. She's having a sexual encounter with a woman who is kind of taking advantage of her vulnerability. She's living in her
Yeah.
house. It's like nothing is
Yeah. Yeah.
free. But as
Nothing
she
is
gets
free.
older,
Yeah.
now she's free. Now she's having sex with who she wants, when she wants. But when she
Mhm.
first started, that wasn't the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, when she had sex in the car, I think that was for money.
You might be right, because I got the feeling that it was as well. But look, a girl's got to do what a girl's got to do. If that's what she's doing, what else could she possibly do it,
Yeah.
without
And
an
that,
education, living in her
yeah.
car? I'm not going to knock her.
Yeah. And it's really sad that she felt like she couldn't go back to her parents' home. Or maybe she did, and maybe that's, I don't know. Maybe she did go back and they just shut her out again. But I really admire her sort of Mia's sort of stern. There's this quietness about her that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
And the way she sort of takes her time to think about things. You were saying that she sort of rushes into these like huge decisions, and she does at first when she's younger, but as an adult, she's it's almost like she's got it on lock. You know what I'm saying? Because she's traveled, she's done this before, she's learned. And so you see her go from this naive person to this person who has a lot of discernment.
I agree, because I feel like she knows right from wrong now. She has this intuition about what to do, what not to do. But I feel like her daughter is like her kryptonite. Like
It
is
is.
Pearl is forcing her to make decisions that she knows are not good for them in the long run. But because she wants her daughter to feel loved, and she wants her daughter to know that she's important, she's making these decisions, and
Yeah.
that's messing her up. Like, if she never
Yeah.
tried to get close to Elena, she will be fine right now.
And it's a dangerous age because Pearl's at the age where she wants to know who her father is,
Yep.
where she comes from, and she's being influenced by all these other kids. So there's no way that Mia can combat that on her own, try as she might. That's why everything's falling apart,
Yeah,
because she just cannot do it on her own. Like, there's this saying, of course, you've heard, like, it takes a village. And
absolutely.
although that may be true, not everybody has a fucking village. Do you see what I'm saying? Mia doesn't have a village. She has two unsupportive parents who have shown her that her being her authentic self is not enough for them.
Yeah.
And that's literally all she has. That's it. And
Yeah.
then her brother who passed away,
Yeah.
who was her ace, now he's gone. So she literally just has herself. And so, especially, and when you are raising, and that's why it's so fascinating about like the racial undertones in this show too, because when you put that situation into like this white sort of neighborhood, right? It's like taking a fish out of water. Like
Agree.
how long are we gonna survive? Because of all like the little nuances and the rules and the social norms here, those rules don't apply to you, right? The same rules don't apply to everybody. So Mia and Pearl are not going to get that same grace as Elena and her family would, or any other family would in the area. So I like how this show ties it race isn't in your face, but you see its undertones and you see how it makes this whole story more eerie and murky.
Agreed, because I feel like, the first 5 episodes, we look at her like, she's a single mom in a town with a bunch of people who are in 2-parent households. So like in this day and age, she would be like a baby mama. And it's like, that's it's there's more than meets the eye. Her story is not like that. It's not like this stereotypical story that is kind of placed on Black women in single parent households, like, oh, the father abandoned them, didn't want to be a father, poverty. That's not her story. She actually kidnapped her child from a surrogacy. So there is definitely more than meets the eye in their instance. She's a single parent by choice. It's not because she had some instance with a man. Like, it's not a man who dictated her situation. She made that decision. She had the power.
I just want to add some single women who have had a man also make that choice to dip.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's so hard for people to realize that, because women are supposed to be the the ones who do whatever the man decides. Especially in the 90s and 80s, women did not have the rights and the freedom that we do now.
Yeah.
I remember they didn't used to make, do you remember? They didn't used to make sneakers for females unless they were like the little kid sneakers. You would have to go to male sneaker stores and buy sneakers in men's size. Do you not remember that?
No, I don't. I'm glad I don't.
Yeah. In the 90s, that's how it was. They didn't have female sneakers. They didn't have ladies' Foot Locker. You had to buy sneakers in a man size, and you had to calculate your size as a woman, because the only women's sneakers they had were the little kids and the little tennis shoes. All the sneakers were considered male sneakers because they were athletic or sports sneakers. Very interesting.
You know what's interesting too about Elena? This is the first time Elena, I think, is going to be confronted with herself. I think through, snooping around Mia's life, it sort of puts a mirror up to hers. Like when she finds out
Oh,
all this shit about Mia, she's gonna have to be confronted with herself, which is what I think is so special about this show, because we see Elena sort of being delusional this entire time.
she's already having to be confronted with herself because of Mia. She
Yeah.
was
From
snooping.
the very
Mia
moment, this is
down.
why Mia like frustrates her being and she can't put a pin on it.
Mm-hmm. She went looking for Mia and somehow ended up at the New York Times with her ex-flame. It's like, and now she had to think about her old life and the
Right.
things she did wrong.
Yeah.
I bet you she
Yeah.
didn't even know what hit her.
Yeah. She's just so fascinated by her because she's so different. And I do think there's this element of similarity there too that like draws her to Mia.
Oh yeah, and I think jealousy. I think jealousy could be a huge factor.
For
Because,
sure. Yeah, here's this woman with agency. Who does she think she is, rolling up with her kid and just
uh-huh.
living life? Oh, and you're an artist? Oh, and she's supposedly respected?
Not even just that. Have you noticed? I got the feeling that her husband believes that Mia is attractive, which is why he said
Oh,
something
yes.
eye
I was
contact with her.
thinking about that too because we don't want to like this is why this show is so good because like it shows you real life and its nuances like so subtly, but they're so impactful and they mean something. Like when his best friend says, "Ooh, I wouldn't mind having her," and then you see her husband being a little like, like shaken up by that, like he's like nervous. um and so I wonder how much of that is, has to do with possibly Elena cheating on him and wanting to, I don't know, get revenge, or I don't
I
know.
didn't even think about that. I kind of saw it as like kind of like Hester Prynne from the Scarlet Letter. Like people thought she was
Ah,
attractive, obviously,
yeah.
but because she had that stigma, it's like,
Yes.
we can't look at her or we can't
Yes.
do this. She's so attractive, but we're scared we're gonna be next. We're gonna be the
Right.
ones who have to
Right.
step
And
out on our wives because she's so beautiful. And it's like I kind of get the idea that it's like a fetish because
yeah,
she's the only black woman with the
correct.
natural hair in her neighborhood, and they're looking at it like,
Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah.
Bill, they already showed his little Penthouse magazines. He likes the little blonde girls with the
Yeah.
big boobs.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to have any type of fetish for black
But then
women.
again, that's really all they publicized anyways.
I think it's the taboo of it all. Like, oh, because it's in communities like that, that's considered exotic.
Yeah, and not only that, it just goes to show you how many times these conversations are being had worldwide, especially in America,
Mm-hmm.
towards black women and just objectifying us, in a sexual way.
Absolutely. And I think what makes it even more complex is the fact that she's walking in these areas with husbands and wives, and she has no man, no
Yeah.
boyfriend, no
Yeah.
husband, no nothing. She's not really counted for. So it's like, can we even communicate with the girl who doesn't have a husband? Because it makes us look like, maybe interested. We don't want our wives to
Right.
think that, even though they may be already thinking that.
And it shows you how fragile all of these households really are,
Absolutely.
right? Because they're like picture perfect from the outside looking in, but the foundations are just full of cracks.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what the story is with their friends who have BB's baby.
Oof. Well, it ain't good. From the comment he made, from, the woman being jealous of her friend and just very haggard. Like her being infertile has taken a large toll on her. And it's quite upsetting to like look at and see because
Absolutely.
it's like, I understand you wanting to have a baby. First of all, I'm sorry. I don't understand. And that's just me. That's just me and my brain. I don't understand the obsession of wanting a child. I feel like if you're infertile and you try, but then if you have to keep on trying for years and years, I don't understand why keep on like harming yourself in that way. For the I feel like for her it may not be because she really wants a baby. It may be because if she doesn't, she's a failure.
Exactly. Or she's not a real woman or a real wife.
Correct. Which is this idea that so many women have. And it's interesting because you said something to me the other day. I don't know if we were on the phone or here, but you said something about the women's we were talking about feminism and
Yeah,
how men sort of um, discouraged black women to participate because
absolutely.
it would sort of shatter the foundation of home life
In the black community,
in the black
these
community.
black women are aligning with white women for women's rights and completely excluding, the rights of men in their community who are also underprivileged. So it's like it's conflicting.
Yeah, so dang, I forget my point.
Sorry.
I think I was gonna say, okay, so the women's movement and yeah, I forgot. Sorry.
just going based off of the women's movement, I feel like the 90s in particular was really a time where women's voices were being heard, and I feel like Little Fires Everywhere does a very good job of depicting that in the music they choose, all by strong, powerful women who made a statement. Alanis Morissette in episode 5, You Ought to Know. Um, Meredith Brooks, I'm a Bitch. Like, these are all
Yeah.
real feminist wave songs.
Yeah. The show is so good. It's just so well done.
Absolutely.
It's well done.
It is very well done.
Yeah, I'm really sad if they don't have a season 2.
And I love all the symbolism and the metaphors. Like, I think that's what really drives me to this show. I enjoy watching things that have a deeper meaning than what we actually see.
It shows us how like our mundane, like real life is just like an action movie.
Right? You know, it actually reminds me of a book I read, As the Great World Turns, by what is his name? McCann. I think it's James McCann. And it's a depiction of like several people's lives in New York City around the time of Philippe Petit, the great tightrope roper. He walked across the Twin Towers on a tightrope. This took place in the 80s as well. So this took place around the time Little Fires Everywhere takes place as well. And this book was really going through several people's different day-to-day lives. One guy, he was rescuing prostitutes. He was like really into religion. Another family, they were prostitutes. It was a mother and daughter, and it was just a lot of different scenarios. But everyone's lives were impacted by a series of different events, but they were all taking place at the same time as this tightwalk roper was walking across the Twin Towers. And I feel like it's so interesting because Little Fires Everywhere, I feel like they bounce back and forth between times. Like, I don't know when I'm not too clear about Mia. When did she go to college? I know that when they were at the party, the second party, that was 1981. And I know that because of the Grandmaster Flash reference. But when they skipped to Elena, it was 1983. So it's like, we skipped 2 years. However, I feel like they were bouncing back between times, because then when they went back to Mia, she was in this graffiti Style Wars type subway. And that was really the 80s in New York. So it's like she was the late 80s. I love how they bounce back with the different times. But in the same sense, I feel like it's a little confusing because again, I feel like we're skipping past things that we may want to see, or like Mia's exhibit. I feel like that would have been important to see if it did happen. I think that was a really important time in her life, and I
Yeah.
feel like we could have got a better idea on how this teacher is helping her, and how Mia is progressing as an artist.
Yeah. Yeah. And what her artistry really means.
Exactly. All the art we saw from her when she was younger was what this woman was cultivating with her, or what this woman was helping her cultivate.
Yeah. 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 I definitely do want to see more of Mia the artist, but I don't know if we're going to see that in just 2 episodes.
I'm curious to know what Mia's gonna do next. Like, is she going to find another female partner? Is she gonna find a male partner? Is she gonna be
Mhm.
single for the rest of her life? Because I feel like in her past, everything was really just dictated for her. So now that she has the freedom, I wonder what she's gonna do.
I don't know. I feel like she's not in that. Do you mean from the time Pearl is like a baby up until a teenager, or after?
I mean, after now as an adult, I wonder what her next move is, because
Okay.
her lover situation was coerced, her child situation was coerced. So it's like, now that she has the freedom as an adult living on her own with her child in this town where no one is pulling the puppet strings, I wonder what her next move is going to be. Like, is she really just planning on being a single mother staying in Elena's house? Because
Well,
I don't feel like they're going to be staying there for too long. I
Yeah.
don't feel like they can. So
No, for
what's
sure.
her plan? Is she going to get with her boss? Because remember, she did have sex with her boss. It didn't seem like there was any chemistry, though.
And then again, too, that was transactional. Wow.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
It
It's
is
sad.
sad. Oh my gosh.
Because it's like she had no time to like become herself. Like she was just sort of thrusted into this
Real
into
world.
adulthood. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we never got the chance.
In a really hard way. In a really like just abrupt way.
Exactly. And that's why I feel like the relationship with her teacher was just strange because we didn't get to see her fall in love. We didn't
Yeah.
giddy, laughing, smiling, flirting. It's like
Yeah.
scared
Yeah, and
to
it's kind
embrace
of like when
them.
her teacher was like, "Oh, what do you feel?" And it's like, okay, well, if you're like right here next to me, like yes, I feel like intimate or whatever. I guess her saying what do you feel wasn't enough to show me that she wanted that, if that makes sense.
I agree. And I feel like, again, like I agree with what you said earlier about comparing it to what is it, Tiger Joe? I feel like her saying things as small as, what do you feel are manipulating me? Like,
Yeah.
are you feeling what I'm feeling? Are you going to make the move? Like,
Yeah, like get
that's
out of
kind of what
here.
I got from the teacher, like some kind of creepish shit. So even when she was trying to convince Mia to take the lead, I feel like she was trying to convince her to do what Mia thought she wanted her to do. I don't feel like it was Mia
Yeah.
making the decisions. Like
Yeah.
she had
Yeah,
a
and
purpose. I'm
sometimes
gonna
like
go
as an adult, you just have to know better.
Yeah,
Like,
and I don't feel like she knew better. I don't feel like she knew any boundaries. The reason
no.
I don't feel like she knew any boundaries is because she hid behind what art is and what art isn't. And I think that's really how she was able to get away with it because I feel like Mia was conflicted between what was really her artistic expression and what was her real life.
Do you know what's funny now? Because I feel like Mia and her parents are strict in different ways.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if Pearl is going to have these, as we're seeing her, have these moments that she sort of strives for her own agency in like problematic ways, like Mia did.
Absolutely. Because I feel like Mia is never going to let Pearl go to no school of visual arts in New York City and leave her. Like her parents gave her a little bit of freedom for people who were strict. They let her do that. I honestly didn't get her whole family dynamic, Mia's family dynamic. I felt like they didn't research it well enough. I felt like it was conflicted. I, her child, now we have to be honest here. Her brother was gonna be a football star, and when we say football, we don't mean soccer. Like this is why I couldn't make the connection between like them being African, Jamaican. They don't they don't play American football. Like I don't know. I thought that was very, very strange. And then Mia's going to be an artist. Usually there's some type of push. Like, you're going to be in biology. You're going to, like, there was really
Mhm.
no push. It was just like, we hope our daughter is fine in the city of sin. I don't, I
Yeah,
didn't
they
get it. I
didn't.
felt like they
No, they
didn't research
didn't.
well enough.
They wanted to make her a little bit more interesting.
I don't even
Maybe
think that made her interesting. I feel like it was just confusing. I was wondering why the parents had accents. I didn't feel like it was true to anything.
it's not necessary. It's not necessary for the
Exactly.
story.
Thank you. Yes, I didn't feel like the parents' background was necessary. I kind of feel like they just threw it in there.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I feel like they threw it in there is because do you realize how uniform all of the white communities and families are in this show versus the black people? All the black people are so different from different backgrounds, different cultures, different walks of life. Like none of them are the same. Brian is not
Maybe.
the same as Pearl. Mia is
Yeah.
not really the same as Pearl.
Yeah.
The teacher isn't the same as Mia.
Yeah.
Like nobody's the same. We keep getting introduced to new Black people, but they are all so different. Like they're not unified in terms of like, oh,
Yeah.
you're from Shaker, I'm from Shaker, you're white, I'm white, you're wealthy, I'm wealthy. Like they don't even have that. They have nothing to bond over.
Yeah. Hmm.
I wonder if that was intentional or not. Like her parents are African or Caribbean. She has no indication of this. Like Mia did not soak that in at all, and neither did her brother. And it's
Well,
like she's not carrying any of that with her and her
yeah.
identity. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Even her name, like Mia Wright, like I don't even that could be anybody. That's such a common name. That could be a little Italian girl. Like that can literally be anyone. So it's like the whole cultural reference is so confusing to me.
It's so
It doesn't make
unnecessary. They
sense.
could have really done without it
Yeah,
because
they did a poor job.
they just look like an American family to me. Like,
Not even because there's this weird accent that mother keeps putting
no,
on.
that's what I'm saying. Like, besides the accent, they're just an American family.
I feel like, if they were going to depict the American family in the 90s and 80s,
Or
it would
northern,
it
whatever.
would be the crack epidemic. That's what it would be if they were depicting a Black American family in the 80s. So that's why I
It's
feel
less
like they made
gay.
them get in a limo. That's why I feel like they made them come from a two-parent household to show that they're not a Black American family. But everywhere else, they dropped the ball completely.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed because in episode 5, I heard the mother's accent and I was like, where is she from? I thought we were going to get some type of insight. Instead, we got these weird accents and this weird behavior that just
I
didn't go
hate when they do that. It's just hire people who are from these actual places. Like, there's communities from all backgrounds in America. Like,
I
just
don't even think that would have helped. I feel like what would have helped was better writing, a better character development. What does Mia's parents being Jamaican or African have to do with anything pertaining to her character?
to be honest, not a lot. That's why I feel
Nothing.
like it was unnecessary
Thank
because,
you.
and that's why we don't see that much of them.
And then it's like another thing is I feel like they kind of played this game where they planted a seed like, oh, Pearl, your father is white. What does Pearl's
Wait,
father, is that going to be significant to anything? Like what does Pearl's father being white have to do with anything other than highlight the fact that the Black community is so divided in terms of background, in terms of cultural identity, in terms of religion, like they're just literally showing every form of possible division that the Black community could have. I feel like that's the only
but I
benefit.
also feel like that comment was to highlight how they view us too.
But it
And
was
also
true.
I feel like it was a form of manipulation on her part to
I
even
don't. I feel like because it was true, or because the way that Kerry Washington Mia reacted when she said it, she didn't say, "Oh, your father's Black," or "Oh, I don't know." She said, "I am Black, so you are Black. Doesn't matter." Like all of that, I feel like it's an indication that like again, this Black people are in this jiggy jungle where this one's a zebra, this one's a lion, this one's a bear, this one's an elephant, and somehow we are all a community. It's like every single one of them are all so different from these different backgrounds, have these different beliefs. I feel like I don't even know why else they would have done something like that. Her own daughter is different from her. The teacher is different from her. Lexi's boyfriend is completely different from Pearl. Like I feel like they're putting these Black contrasts in our face for a reason, because they're not doing that with any of the white characters. We don't even meet different white characters. They all have the same state of mind. They all come from the same households. They all have the same beliefs. They all want to have children. They are like, it's the same thing with them, but we're meeting all these weird Black households that have different identities, different languages, different accents, different religions, it's too much. And it bothers me that there's no significance to it yet. Like it's not coming together. So it's like, are you just doing this for nothing? Like, why are you doing this?
Mm.
I hope they have a reason other than just um cultural lack of cultural education. Like I hope that there's some type of reason for what they're doing.
Mm. Yeah, but I'm excited. I'm excited for next week's episode because everything is like, I feel like episode six just gave us so much. Like,
It did.
everything was leading up to episode six. And now to like envision what could happen next in these two episodes, it just has to be like a whirlwind. So I'm excited for it.
Agreed. I loved it all. I thought it was interesting because I feel like, you know, when we hear the music that Mia listens to, like she has her own little taste, but I feel like it's interesting to see her as a kid or as a teenager coming up in the era of hip hop in New York City, the birthplace of hip hop. But I don't see any connection to her in hip hop. I felt like her teacher was like in the culture, in the movement, and she seemed to be like kind of oblivious, and she didn't seem to even have an interest.
Yeah.
So despite the fact that all that was going around in her community, it was interesting that she never really grasped onto it. Like that was the thing in the
Yeah.
80s. If you were black in New York City, like it was hip hop. You were beatboxing, you were breakdancing, you were rapping. So it was interesting that her old teacher was so hip and down and in in tune to what was going on with the young community, and she was just oblivious and didn't even care. And even to this day, like we don't hear her paying any homage to hip hop, or we don't hear any hip hop tracks in her Walkman. So it's like, I don't know. I think it would be nice to, because I feel like it will be like reminiscent of when she was in the city, going to these hip hop art exhibits at that, with her teacher, photographing the breakdancers outside. Those were her beginnings.
The show. Be sure to tune in next week for a recap of episode 7.